Hello, welcome back to the channel. It's been a while since last I played any Rule the Waves 3, but I have recently gotten the urge again, so to speak, and I think I have found my new favorite country to play, and that is France. There are several reasons for this, but first and foremost, it's the fact that France has a home area in both Northern Europe and in the Mediterranean, which makes them super interesting to play. Not necessarily the strongest of all the nations, but they are sort of in the middle of everything. They are as close to I would say, the center of the action for the entire time period as it is possible to get. And you also have I would say, a decent starting point, regardless of era. Well, I haven't tried late starts, but if you start in 1890 or 1900, then France has an okay basis, has a strong fleet and a decent economy. And you will remain sort of competitive throughout the game, but of course you can't compete with the UK, and you can definitely not compete with the US eventually, but the US is the US and will mostly stay on the other side of the Atlantic, so it doesn't really take up a lot of space in game, so to speak. So I would say that France, if you want action, if you want to sort of be in the thick of things, fight wars, have to mind your tension, maybe enter into alliances, that sort of thing, then France definitely something for you, and definitely something for me. I haven't played extensively all the nation, but I have now played all the most of them. I haven't played China and I haven't played Spain. Spain, I think, can be really interesting. You have a very weak start, but if you start in 1890, then you have some colonies and you are not super weak. But of course, your starting points is a lot weaker than France's. That's without a doubt. But the appeal is the same. You start with home areas both in the Med you start and North Europe, and you have colony empire to take care of. So you have a very interesting starting situation, but it's sort of hard mode, I would say. So if you're really good at the game, then maybe Spain is a thing for you. But I'm currently having fun with France. So basically, a new game, and then the question is when to start. And for me, it's always either 1900 or sometimes 1890. Sure, the first period, the first 10 years are kind of weird, and your starting fleet is a complete trash, to put it mildly. But then you have sort of 10 years to shape your fleet into some sort of semblance of an effective navy, so that by the other start date, 1900, you can actually have a combat effective fleet. So that is the appeal starting here. And maybe you can have a war or even two and maybe grab a colony or something like that. But I don't think the war fighting in the 1890s is especially fun. Just all about having as many guns as possible on your ships and then sort of driving right up to the enemy and unloading until he burns down to the waterline. So it gets kind of samey, not a lot of tactics. Yeah. So, but it's an interesting start because the only appeal I would say that 1900 has is that unless you want to sort of start with building your legacy fleet, because that's one thing that you can do, which you cannot do in any other start. You can build all your ships, and then you can sort of have a huge leg up. But we're not going to do that because it's easy mode. So I think we will go for an 1890 start and France. And you can see if you compare dock size and budget, you are nowhere close to Great Britain, of course, but you are actually only slightly stronger than Russia, but Russia has its own problems being split between Northern Europe and the Baltics and the Far East. And you are stronger than Italy, way stronger than Austria-Hungary and Spain. Yeah, you can see here the difference. It's a pretty big difference in budget and dock size. So Spain has some of the same appeals, but there is a lot of challenges with Spain. So yeah, Italy kind of fun to play, and I guess Austria-Hungary as well. But you're very tied to the Mediterranean. You don't have that action in the Atlantic where all the fun happens. So that's why I think the Atlantic nations are the ones that are the most fun. Japan can be fun as well if you sort of like to just sit in your own corner and do things that don't really impact the rest of the game. You sure you can fight some colonial wars and seize every holding in Asia and maybe invade the Med and the Caribbean, but it gets kind of boring after a while, I think. But it's fair enough. But anyway, we are playing France. France has this inconsistent naval policy, and it definitely impacts a series of events where your politicians and the like ask to see your new drawings, so it can delay ship development a little bit. Well, what did I do now? Wow, didn't know I could do that. Um, and I think it maybe also impacts the number of events where your politicians ask you to, come on, you have to build 30 subs or 6 battleships or some such. But it's not a big deal. It's not yeah, you can see you don't have technology leader, but then again, you're not cautious and you don't have a bombastic head of state, so it's sort of even out. You have no research advantages, but you get 3 techs for free. And by for free, it means that when you get to that tech level, you sort of automatically get the tech instead of having to entirely research it. Yeah, and those are not. This one is hardly. It doesn't matter. It's just one of many text that boosts your armor-piercing shots. Quadruple turrets. I don't use those a bunch, so hardly relevant. Not a sloping deck is of course a nice bonus tech to get. China is not part of France game. So that one is out. Guns. You have a pretty good collection of guns. You don't get the quality 1 3-inch gun that Germany gets, but otherwise your sort of gun collection is pretty decent. Yeah, my preferred. You can see here I have a lot of fronts going around. That's because I like copying games between slots. So, I don't think the game is very fun unless you go larger or larger, but we are going to go super large because more ships, more fun. Yeah, 13. The name. And I think since we go super large, I think we can slow down research slightly, so it's more of a struggle to keep current with research sort of dates. The tech tree has gatekeeping dates that prevents you from sort of advancing ahead of time, and you get a lot of research points at super large. So it will slow down your progression somewhat, but at the same time, I feel that 90 is also good, but you don't really feel the slowdown. But maybe 85 would be perfect, but let's keep it at 80. Slight tech variation, that means there is a small die roll for each tech, for each year so that it can vary slightly. So you can get some text earlier or some text later. I feel that it's mostly later, but that may be biased. The other is none or considerable. Considerable adds some texts may be worse than they are in real life. Torpedoes could be better or worse, or triple or quadruple turrets could be worse. Again, I mostly feel that it is the options is things turn out to be worse than real life, but I don't know. Harsher peace deals doesn't hugely impact the game, but it can be fun to have because then you get more peace deals and in, well, basically you getting slightly fewer victory, not victory points, but points to claim colonies or war reparations with. Without this, you can still get huge wins, but there will be more white peace offerings where you get nothing, and also the number of points you get, I think, will be slightly smaller, but it's not a huge deal. This one, yeah, that's what it says. I don't think, well, this I would warn against, because if you use slow aircraft development, then aircraft appear late, but their progression system is the same as before. So it's just that they hop into the game somewhat late, and then they eventually catch up. And combining slower research with slow aircraft is definitely a dumb idea. I have this because I've tried this several times, and it basically means that so you're in 1945-ish, and carriers and carrier planes are finally starting to appear, and boom, suddenly you also have missiles. So the time span where you can sort of engage in classic carrier fights, which would normally be 1935 to 45, that's suddenly much compressed, and you go from having viable carrier options to suddenly your dive bombers are shooting air-launched missiles at enemy carriers. And I think that takes away the fun. I think slow aircraft development is something you can pick if you sort of plan to end the game once carriers and aircraft become more or less dominant. So you plan on just focusing on the super dreadnought aspect of the game, sort of the surface combat elements, then slow aircraft development can be super. Otherwise, I would not touch it. Since we are having big fleets, I think we can max out airbase sizes. Some people don't like land-based aircraft, but I think they should appear, and they should be a threat to your ships, and places like the Mediterranean and the Baltic should definitely be hugely impacted by whomever controls the land. So, name, big fleet, research, standard tech variation, harsh deals, somewhat bigger airbases. And we can pick this one. It's just a test game, so. Okay, here we are at the dreaded start screen. Very Excel-like, very business-like, I would say. You have all the information you need in this screen here. This is not going to be a Rule the Waves tutorial, so I'm kind of assuming you already know why you're here and what we're up to. I'm gonna explain my thinking and maybe comment on some mechanics, but it's not a sort of a tutorial. But anyway, map, ships in service, ships under constructions, subs not relevant now, ports not very many at the moment, sunk or scrapped ships, areas, bases, that's basically two different ways of looking at the same information, and a list of officers. And you already start with a bunch of officers assigned. Yeah, so we have, let's sort by displacement here. So we have two different classes of battleship. A total of 11 battleships to begin with. And we also have 3 battleships building. Okay. Now, these are, of course, completely hopeless. If you look at ship history, it says they were laid down 1887 and became operational January 1890. That is now. But of course, in theory, these are older. Some of them are older ships using very old technology. That is not completely apparent here, but if we go to open design, you can see that these actually start with quality 3 minus 3 guns. That's horrendously bad. That's basically muzzle loaders. They have a staggeringly low rate of fire. There's a secondary armament of 5-inch casemate guns. In other words, guns that stick out of the hull in little gun ports, very Age of Sail-ish. And then you have a bunch of 2-inch guns, 50mm-ish guns that are also casemated. They don't have any graphics for those. They are teeny tiny little guns. So it has a lot of guns, most of them quite small. These only fire once in a blue moon. And looking at the gun data, you can see here that they have poor range. Rate of fire, for some reason, isn't listed, but it is very low. You can see the belt penetration here. It won't penetrate my own belt, that's for sure, even though we are using super primitive armor, so I think that has a negative modifier to actual armor thickness. Same goes for turrets. But it has a narrow, low belt, so it only protects from, well, below water and not so high as a normal belt does. And there is no belt extended, there is no upper belt, there is no deck extended, there is no turret top. So these are open topped turrets. Okay. Yeah, it's a horrible ship. It has low freeboard, so it doesn't do well in bad weather. It has a short range, so it can't move around during war, and also will have problems with cruising at high speed for long periods of time in battle. There's cramped accommodation, which can be a problem, both when you are away from your own territories and also if you are blockaded. So this is in all ways a horrible ship. 15 knots. The only upside is that our enemies also have these horrible battleships, but it's so bad. So the only reason you might not immediately scrap it is because it takes time to build up a useful fleet, and these guys provide some blockade value, which is also counter blockade value, so you can't just get rid of them. Also, if you just try to burn them to the ground, you get this warning. Prestige will suffer if you scrap them. So we will wait, but we are definitely mothballing a lot of them. These will only be brought out in times of war. We have no clue how skilled our officers are. Okay, we are building 3 battleships. I think the other one is slightly faster. Yeah, but it has only 2 main guns, and a small secondary battery of 2 11-inch guns. This is typical of the time. Again, even with primitive armor, this thickness is enough to completely stop the main guns, so it would be up to secondaries and tertiaries, quick firing gun, relatively speaking. They can't penetrate the turrets or the citadel, but they can sort of completely wreck the ship, set the superstructure on fire, and just sort of burn it to the waterline. Yeah, again, cramped, short, low speed. This one also has a bunch of torpedoes. I don't think we looked at torpedoes. This one has 6 torpedoes, 2 on the sides and front and back. This one has no front torpedo, but it has 5 torpedo tubes. This is horrendous, and we will be divesting those as soon as we can, because even on mothball status, they are just draining our resources. What I do like here is that we have a single class of heavy cruiser, and it's pretty big for the time period, 7,500 tons. It's not horrible. Looks kind of funky. It has some wing turrets, but it has 8-inch guns. Okay, yeah. So we could actually upgrade the guns on that one from -2, which is very bad, to -1, which isn't so bad. But this one actually has a kind of upgrade path forward. And we can do this instead. Open the sign for rebuild, that gives a better perspective, so good. No, that's the problem, of course. Yeah, we can't upgrade -2 guns, then we would have to drop 1 caliber. But a -1 7-incher is probably better than a -2 8. Unfortunately, we cannot increase the secondary battery above 5, I think. Or can we get singles? Yeah, we could install some singles. And also, yeah, so we have some rebuild options here. The main issue here, speed is it's not great. 20 knots is not super duper good. Yeah, we need to work on the visuals, but I'm just looking at how bad these are. Not completely useless, actually. But the deck is way too thick and the belt is way too thin. I mean, anything above 1 inch in the start here, we are not going to take any plunging fire anyway. You could take splinter damage from thing exploding higher up in the ship, but that's just something you can live with. Okay, so this is not, it's not a entirely horrible starting ship. We could do something like this. Yeah, not impossible. Okay, so we have some heavy cruisers that are not completely hopeless. They even have a decent speed. Well, decent in 1890. Light cruisers, that's more of a mixed bunch, although this Fax isn't too bad. 22 knots. Yeah, it's 21, but there is a slight chance that thing can get a class can end up with higher or lower speeds. This is also a rubbish design because you can see it could free up 500 tons if it had a more serious deck. So there's we can't do anything about that, of course. 2-inch deck for a light cruiser. I don't know what they were thinking. Okay, it has a bunch of 16-inch guns and 2-inch guns. That's completely helpless. We bold shit that will reduce the speed to 19 knots, which is bad, so we can't do that. Okay, but it's not horrible. It's not good, but it's not horrible. And this is just the same, probably with just a minor difference in armor layout. Yeah, it's the same 2-inch guns, completely worthless, of course, and 6-inch guns, those are good. So, okay, so we have 9 of those, and this is more of the same, just with, oh, I wish they didn't do this. They have, these two classes are essentially the same, and these two classes are essentially the same, with very minor differences. Okay, so we have 3 plus 9, so 12 decent-ish light cruisers. Then we have this outlier here, which is 4,700 tons. Yeah, okay, it's basically the same, only with 5 instead of 6-inch guns and 3-inch instead of 2-inch. Almost think this one is better because it doesn't waste so much tonnage and it only has a 1.5-inch deck. 1.5, that's so useless. And a belt of only 2 that doesn't stop anything at the ranges we need to operate. So definitely we need to redo all the ship classes for the future. We cannot sort of go forward with any of this. Yeah, these ones probably have a normal freeboard and accommodation, short range. That's bad, can't be changed. But only -2 guns. -2 guns also cannot be upgraded, so you would have to drop down to say it very low. Yeah, no point. This one is not short range, but yeah, it's okay. -2, 12-inch, and a few 8-inch guns. Oh, and some 6-inch guns. Okay, this is a lot better than the other battleship. It even has decent speed, so I'm not saying it is good, but if all my battleships were like this in 1890, I would be very happy. Then I would feel that my battleships are the best. It even has belt extended, not high enough, but okay. And upper belt maybe a little bit too high. So the armor layout actually makes sense. Guns bit anemic, but kind of makes sense as well. So kind of could develop this into another design that's similar but much better. But you can also see that it is pushing the current max build size is 14,000, so this is 13,700. I guess we could drop it to 17 knots. That's maybe sufficient at this stage, but then we could have a reliable engine. Okay. Finally, we have these 5-6 ships that have a bunch of 5-inch and 4-inch and 3-inch guns. They are just. Is this one really 20 knots? Yeah. Okay. Really. This is at least a bit faster. And the belt armor isn't too bad. But it has no guns, so yeah. Okay. Then we have 4 colonial cruisers. They have the sea here, so they count as multiply the tonnage by 1.25, so 25% extra. That's their actual tonnage that counts against this foreign station requirement. So this is 8, 12, 14, 29,000 we need on foreign station. So these count as a little over 2,000, so that's 8.5. But we can also see we have a bunch of heavy cruisers out there that is super wasteful. Very high maintenance cost for those guys. So we can send these out on foreign station. That will help a lot. And we can bring some of these guys back in and send out some of the smaller fish here. I would definitely be using these 6 to satisfy current and future colonial needs. This one is hopeless, of course. This is just a meaningless ship. It's a corvette of 900 tons, sort of an auxiliary vessel. Has absolutely no relevance to the game, except maybe provide some trade protection once we get into a war. This could be scrapped, of course, but I'm just gonna stick it on trade protection for now, and then we can maybe use it, put it on mothball, and we can use it for trade protection later. Maybe give it minesweeper status or something. I don't know. So, looking at our current finances, we have a yearly budget of a little over 200 grand. We have a monthly budget of 17 and something. You can see maintenance. So most of it goes into construction, no aircraft, of course. Research, we need to increase that. But you can see our monthly balance. It's not that great, so let's see if we can do something to stabilize the economy, should I call it. And start by putting everything on reserve. Yeah, we can't do the non-home areas. So these one we will put on foreign station. You can press F or just go here, foreign station. Then they will start moving around and sort of contribute to the pool of foreign station. So what did I say? I said 8,000 plus 6,000 plus 15. So we need 29,000 on foreign station. Okay, can do that. And if they are 1,700 tons times 1.25 times 4 ships, so we still need 20,500 tons to satisfy our foreign station requirements. And how many are these light cruisers? Are 6 times 3.5, so that should do it. Let's bring up the calculator again. So 3,300 times 3 plus 3,900 times 3. Oh, that's more than enough. 40. Oh, wow. That's not correct. I think I did something weird here. Let's just take the average. 21,600. Okay, so these guys, all these guys on foreign station, that should be sufficient. And then we can move these guys back to Northern Europe. That could actually take a while because they are going to stop because of communication problems, because they have fuel issues, all sort of things. This is the 1890, so not like you can just send someone a text message and ask them to come back home. I think that's as good as this gets. We might temporarily refit some of these ships to sort of get the most mileage out of them. But it's not like these aren't ships that are going to be with us much beyond 1900. So they are an expendable resource. If we get into a war and one or more are sunk, that's not a problem because we will be building newer, better ships anyway. So this is the intelligence screen, spying and steal technologies, of course. So that's maybe the most dramatic. But it is also important in terms of getting intel reports on enemy ships and equipment, planes later on. And also in times of war, having high intel is helpful with battle generation, among other things. But right now we don't have a lot of money, so I see no point in spending anything on intelligence for the first few years, so we can sort of do that in a couple of years' time. I also don't think we really need to do anything about our doctrine now. We are definitely not going to spend money on special training. I mean, gunnery is hideously expensive. We have very bad gunnery at this stage, so I mean, having this and good or elite crews, that can actually be huge difference early on in times of hitting. Still won't hit very often, but relatively speaking. But you could also have 1/3 more ships, so no. Night fighting is actually highly useful. Night battles can be really decisive, and being able to open fire first or evade first can be very useful. But I'm not going to get into many night fights. They are too risky anyway, so there is, I don't think, but if you are going to pick a special ability, special training, then night fighting is definitely the thing. Torpedo warfare, I guess that can be something if you're Japan and have a rebate on the cost. But at this stage, your torpedoes suck anyway, so even with this, they still suck. So that could be a thing once destroyers and torpedoes become somewhat dangerous, but not super dangerous. I mean, if you have good or elite destroyers with 3 triple or quad launchers and oxygen fuel torpedoes much later, then maybe this could be a thing if you are Japan and does have a rebate, but not for me. Yeah, probably going to shift the ammo loadout here in favor of high explosive for the smaller guns in a little while. Here you can also see one of the few benefits of the 7-inch, that it belongs to sort of the heavy gun or middle heavy gun category, so you can set a different priority for that one. So you could have cruisers or even light cruisers with 7-inch guns that actually shoot armor piercing, but they secondary and tertiary batteries shoot mostly high explosive for maximum structural damage. If you aren't going to penetrate the belt anyway, then you might as well go with high explosives. Kind of, yeah. So that's my ships, my doctrine. Before we hit research, we can just quickly go over the almanac and see what the others have. So, almanac. Wow. As you can see, I'm not sure why Japan is behind. I think everyone starts with the same tech in 1890. Okay, anyway, maybe that's just bad intelligence. But you can see that our budget, it is quite big. It is the second largest in the world way behind Britain, of course, but yeah, uh, not horrible. And you can also see from the fleet tonnage that we are definitely also second in the world. And Germany, our traditional enemy, is much, much weaker. And Italy is almost on par with us, but of course Spain and also Austria, Hungary, both of whom are close by, they are pretty weak. Japan is also very weak and also on the other side of the world. And at this stage, the US is also very weak. Russia is pretty strong but has issues with location. And also it tends to be very friendly with France. So we are natural allies, actually. So if you look at fleet sizes, we can see that our 14, 11, and 3 building battleships, that's actually pretty competitive, except for Great Britain. And same with cruisers. We are behind Italy, but our cruiser size is pretty big. If you look at Italy, they must have smaller cruisers. 9 CAs within 50,000 tons, that's not a whole lot. Again, Great Britain is way ahead. It's no use comparing to them. Same with Germany. They have fewer and smaller cruisers. CLs. Yeah, this time we had some very small CLs, but I've had starts where most of my light cruisers are of the 3,000 something type. So I like those 5,600 tonners with that speed boost. That's not bad. And they had a lot of 6-inch guns and 2-inch guns. That's not good, but yeah. AE, it's not very important. We can have a quick look at what the others have. We can look at our natural enemy, so to speak, Germany. Germany isn't strong at the moment. Yeah, I think everyone starts with basic. They don't have as many guns as we do, and slightly smaller dock size and a smaller budget, of course. We take a quick look at their. They only have 4 battleships, and if you think our battleships sucked, and look at this, they are even slower and they are less than half the size. Oh, this is hopeless. Our battle line would crush theirs. The cruisers, yeah, they have a few of these. They are not horrible, 8 and 6, but they have good armor for the time. These are mostly the same, but sort of 7 and 5 instead of 8 and 6. So also not bad, but they are slow, if the report is correct. So, and you can see that most of their cruisers, light cruisers, are of the Geffion type, Frauenlob. Frauenlobs, they are a bit beefier. They have real belt 8 and 6-inch guns, so those are good. Those are kind of in the Sfax category, but the rest they are not good. So the German Navy, very weak. And you can again see those tiny, tiny battleships. And again, you can see cruisers, not so great. Great Britain has better battleships than we do at start. I would have to say that they have more, and generally speaking, 13-inch guns, 3 or 4. Not great, but better than ours. And the cruisers are pretty powerful. Look at this, almost 10,000 tons. I think, yeah, so let's not get into a fight with Great Britain. small cruisers. Russia, I don't think we would get into trouble with 6. Well, look at this. It's wow. Some crazy shipbuilding there. Spain also. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, then research. Yeah, we can, before we forget, we should expand our docks. Save. So now the balance is just 2,000. So you can see that we can't really, unless we get our finances in order, so to speak, we can't really do that much. The biggest drain on our finances is this sort of collection. So we have to figure out if we really need to finish building these ships. Most of them are. Oh, okay. Why can't I? Months left. Yeah, they are sort of half done or more. So it's kind of sad to scrap them. But this one in particular, I don't really enjoy that much. I consider scrapping this. We also getting rid of this one because it's not really a ship that will help us do more. 9. And 11. 12. We could just put, yeah. It's not cool to sort of get rid of them if they are useful. Anyway, research. There aren't a lot of research areas unlocked. The maximum you can spend is, of course, 12%. 10% is sort of the golden zone, after which the return on investment is supposed to be somewhat drastically reduced. So just put it at 12. That will cut into our finances a bit, but we'll have to live with it. So turrets and gun mountings, very important. Ship design, also very important. This is not important for now. I think a couple of categories are hidden here because I set research to 80%. Fire control is also hugely important, but for now I'm going to reduce it to low. Guns, high for now. I usually like to balance it out. So if I have 3 highs, then I have 3 lows. There is no rule that says you have to do it like that, but that's how I like to do it. I'm not saying that we should down prioritize fire control forever, but it's 1890. You are not going to get any new fire control for a little bit anyway. So yeah, you can just do that. So between the dock building and the monthly balance, so definitely no intel. Need to number crunch a little bit, see if I want to scrap something immediately to free up funds or not. Yeah, so I think I will keep most of the ships, but I don't see myself sort of pursuing this one. It's cheap, but it's I don't know. It's kind of a shame to scrap it when it's almost done. But sort of a weird middle ground, so I'm gonna get rid of that one. And in many ways, this is the least bad of my battleships currently building, but it is more than a year away. It's building with that short range. I'm gonna say goodbye to that one as well. This gives a lot more wiggle room. We can actually build up a little bit of reserve. So before I change my mind, I'm going to hit save so there will be no take-backsies. Before we proceed, we can then sort of arrange our we're gonna need 3 of these, couple of these, light cruisers, maybe 5, I'm not entirely sure. No. 4. Okay. 8. So let's put these 5 into that one and put 3 each here. No, they are completely unknown, so there is no point manually assigning them. When those 2 building battleship come off the line, they can go 1 each into here as a sort of a flagship or something. Should be fine. Ooh, kind of tempting to just wrap it. Don't really need another heavy cruiser with subpar armor. No. And goodbye. Maybe a mistake, but I'm doing it anyway. And no take-backsies. How many light cruisers do we have of this family? We had 7, we have 9. Okay, so these are my useful ones. We have 3 more with 21 not there. Well, they have 22 knots, so it's probably best to just keep them together. It's not super important. You can rearrange them later on. These are my foreign station. I don't need to put them into flagship. Okay, that got a little bit messy. I could have put my combat ships on top, but okay, whatever. And these 3 can go into the final group when they are done, or I could do 4 ship groups as well. Those are combat ships, so there is, especially early on before light cruisers are scouting cruisers, it can be sort of useful to. Yeah, I think I will do that, but later. So no destroyers or anything. So, but now we need to design new ships. Or we can wait 1 month or something. Designing ships cost a little bit of money here, so but we can look at some ship designs. Let's see if let's start with the heavy cruiser. Um, I don't think that battleship. We need some sort of battleship as well, just to comply with the battle generator. But our main ships will be heavy cruisers and light cruisers, basically. And destroyers come later. And battleships, well, you can't completely avoid building pre-dreadnought battleships. I think that gets weird because these won't, especially not at 80% tech, these won't last all the way until you get dreadnoughts. So we have to build something. Is this a design we want to keep going with? I will look at that off screen for a second. Okay, I took our sole existing cruiser as sort of the start point. You don't have to do this, of course. These side turrets, I would say, are rather wasteful, but part of the fun is to sort of build on the design lineages the game gives you. That's part of the fun for me anyway, and I also have to make a ship that looks like it could actually kind of fit all the guns. So I have made numerous changes, of course. First of all, the tonnage has gone up quite considerably by over 4,000 tons. It could go even higher, but if you go even higher, then you get this error message. It's not an error message, but this could delay development, and also there's a bit of role playing involved. So I want to sort of stay somewhat grounded. It would be better to just hit 14,000 and cram even more guns into it, but we are not going to do that. Pushing the speed beyond 20 is not really feasible, but I have given it reliable engines, which will give it a bit more endurance during battle. It won't break down quite as fast. It will still lose speed because of coal and vertical triple expansion, but it will be better. I have also moved away from protected cruiser, and that is so I can have both the narrow belt and the upper belt armor. I feel that this is a period where that is relevant. More parts, I mean, this would be even better, but it's just too heavy, so this is a compromise. This means that more hits that would normally go into belt will hit belt extended, not a problem, or upper belt, almost not a problem, or just slip through the cracks, so to speak. So, could be a problem, but it is a necessary compromise. I have taken deck down to 1, because again, you could get splinter damage. You could have a hit in the superstructure that possess big chunks of metal or burning stuff that plunges through your thin deck and into your engine spaces, but it's not going to happen that often. You just have to accept it, because a 2-inch deck would do this, and it's just not possible at this stage. Gunning tower turrets also 5. It's kind of weak because given how armor is at this point in time, it is less effective than you'd usually think. But yeah, this is more or less splinter proof the top, and also the secondary guns. I find that when you are in the 1890s, secondary gun armor is actually useful because you'll be fighting at knife. You will be basically shivving the other ship. So if you lose all your secondary batteries early, then you don't win. If you can keep them around because of armor, then you have a much better chance at winning. Have the graphics set at pre-dreadnought, ammo for 6 and 4-inch guns, which are my secondaries now. This is now a -1 gun, -1 6-inch guns, the little turrets, and I have some casemated 4-inch guns, a lot of them in fact. Yes, it would be better to have them as 5-inch, although you do get a little rate of fire penalty, but this is good enough. Good for just mass of fire, which is what we're going for now. So 32 guns, secondary, tertiary, that's the max we can have right now. I think that is a fair compromise. Also, it looks kind of funky, but we're in the 1890s, so why not? But it also can fit all the gun. I'm not going to bother with the casemates. They are down in the hull anyway. So I also fitted in 4 torpedo tubes because I realized this one doesn't have a single torpedo tube, and that is horrible. Not good. And the reason these are not completely random, first of all, I have to stay within my tonnage limit, so there are limitations, but also if you look at the 8-inch, which is going to be typical 8 and 7-inch for other cruisers, you can see that, okay, it can pen the belt and turrets at 1,000 or less yards, but I'm going to be shooting maybe in this section, so should be sufficient. However, armor is very primitive, so it actually, I think, protects somewhat less than you'd think. So ideally, I would like this to be 6 or even 7, but again, we have to make compromises. Yeah. But 8-inch is not important. The important part is the pen of 6-inch, 5-inch, and 4-inch. So let's look at the, or we could look at the 7-inch as well. So this is the 7-inch. So you can see against the 7-inch, very good protection. Against the 6-inch, even better, of course, and near immunity against this guy. So this means this ship can go and slug it out with other AI cruisers, both light and heavy, and even their battleships. To keep in mind that these kinds of guns could penetrate us, but they shoot so super rarely, so it's not going to be a huge problem. No, not a lot of ammunition, but it is enough. Everything is on local, so yeah. This ship isn't going to upgrade a whole lot, so I wouldn't really worry about it. I have given it a very descriptive name. It's a heavy cruiser from 1890. 20 knots on so weiter. That was just a working title for me. The important part is this first designation here, so we can actually take that one away, and we can have Dupleix. Okay, sure. I still want it. There it is. I'm sure other. I mean, we could sort of extend the name more. The first heavy cruiser we designed in 1890. I don't think that is needed. So I like it. It's definitely a leap forward. Visionary Grand Admiral or something. But it's not completely removed from what came before. So I'll put this into the design process. Yeah, it says a narrow belt, I know. You cannot have narrow belt if you use protected cruiser, so that's why I had to shift to the somewhat heavier flat deck on belt. You can read more about the armor types in the manual. And this cannot be sort of worked around. That's just the way it is. So can be refitted later on. So this will cost me a lot of money and take 3 months. So yeah, okay, let's just get on with it. Save. I'll see if I can make a light cruiser, but we could be, no, we can wait a month because we don't have enough funds for it. Anything else I should remember? No, I think we have everything going here. Officers, area overview, yeah. Northern Europe and the Med, that's the only two that actually count. These guys are on their way home, so yeah, let's hit the turn button. And that concludes the first episode of this France 1890s playthrough. The runtime is about an hour now, so I think it is time to wrap it up. Next episode will be the first few turns. I sincerely hope we don't get into too many wars in 1890. We need to develop some new ship types and get more hulls into the water, research some technologies, maybe build some coastal fortifications if we have the funds. Lots of stuff to do. So see you in the next one.